Welcome to Living the Dream Iowa Life. I'm your host, Hannah Nuss, and each weekday we'll share enthusiasm for what's possible and dive into the stories of Iowans living their dream lives right here in the heartland. Whether you're chasing a big goal or just looking for a little inspiration, we've got you covered. Let's change the world together. This is Living the Dream Iowa Life. Let's go. Hey y'all, welcome to Living the Dream Iowa Life podcast. I'm your host, Hannah Nuss, and isn't it a dream? I don't know. I saw a funny shirt over the weekend. Welcome to Iowa, we're all gonna die, which, with climbing cancer rates in our state, I think we're the number 2, and I can attest, it is all over, and there is something here that we haven't even begun to understand. Hopefully someone can start advocating for understanding this. Why here specifically? I do wonder who else, which state leads. I'm looking right now because otherwise I'm going to wonder about it the whole episode and you're not going to be able to even listen to me because I'm going to be all over the place. Leading let's look. Okay, Google. Kentucky. Kentucky, Iowa, West Virginia, and Louisiana. Okay. So it's actually putting Iowa pretty low, but this might be an older study. Most of them are southern states. Interesting. Highest lung cancer. Okay. That, I don't know how old this one is, 2024. This is not what we're going to talk about today, but actually it kind of revolves around Mississippi has the highest cancer mortality rate, meaning people die the most from it there. Anyways, yeah, that's interesting. Welcome to Iowa. We're all going to die. And I'm kind of half laughing just because we have been affected by cancer. I would guess every single family in this state has been affected somehow, and I wonder how many states that's a reality, so just interesting little factoid. And this leads us right into our question today. Where, I don't know if it's where. Yeah, I think it's where. Where do you feel protected? Safe. And I think the obvious answer is and should be our homes, but that's not always everyone's answer because some people's homes are not a place of safety. And I like to think of this as a kind of inside out theory, as in if we don't feel safe in our home, where we are supposed to feel our safest, we probably are not going to feel safe anywhere. Or we're going to root down inappropriately, causing a lot of imbalance in life. And I think for me, that's played out in different ways. Definitely rooted to athletics because my home, it was safe enough but it definitely wasn't a steady, sure safeness. It was very angry and outbursty and slam doors and yelling or, just a lack of emotional control. Definitely as a child. It got better as I got older. But as a child, without question, there were many, many outbursts. This was not a consistently safe place. I definitely felt loved. I definitely felt like I had a good upbringing. But I always had a current of like jumpiness. I know the safety will be disrupted. I know that I won't be hurt physically here, but the mental load of that definitely wore on me. And so, not feeling safe in my home caused me to look for that kind of love and protection elsewhere. And I found that in sports. And so, you can imagine when that journey came to an end, how uprooting that felt. And for some people who didn't root as deeply in their sport, who had safe, balanced environments of home and family and upbringing, probably didn't have that uproot experience. It probably just came and went. No big deal. It happened. Now we're moving on. This was just an experience. And that wasn't it for me. Like, all right, throw this life away. If I can't be this thing, then I am done. This is who I was supposed to be in this world. This is everything to me. And it absolutely was. It was. That was where I felt protected. That was where I felt safe. That was where I felt empowered. That was where I could get into flow. There really wasn't a disruption coming along. It was pretty steady. Even if we weren't winning consistently, it was still steady. It was still something that I could depend on, that I knew was there without question. And it was lovely. And when that ended, I felt like I had no home. Very specifically, at that point in college, I literally had no home. My parents had divorced about a year and a half before, and there was no place. I would have even taken slamming doors and anger and mental abuse. I would have taken that over nothing. But there was no home whatsoever. And I felt completely unprotected, unsafe. And it really is no wonder that I sort of clammed up in that what should have been sort of an adolescent season of expansion. This was where I should be trying on my first kind of adult self. This is where I should find my way in this world. This is where my wings should expand and I should fly away. And instead, I was like, oh, I can be a bird. Nope. Bird? Flying? No. Clam, ground, safe, keep everything in, put a shell around me to protect me. I do not want to free flow into this world. And I think in those seasons, I definitely rooted to uprooted humans. I attempted to root to anything and everything. I probably had unquestionably the most unhealthy relationships of my entire life during that season. I was completely lost. So open and unprotected, kind of grasping for anyone to want to grasp onto me, because it felt like no one did at all. Completely open and rejected at the same time. And yeah, like my parents were finding their new lives, their new normal. My sisters were having kids, so they were like building their own families to make life better for themselves, right? So they could have a home, one that wasn't maybe like the one, and they were building their own homes. So they didn't need they didn't need kind of an in between home to find themselves in. They were building their own. And I don't know, I just felt so vulnerable and open to the world. And I attracted a lot of terrible people, a lot of terrible relationships, a lot of terrible friendships, just bad, bad stuff, which I think is what happens when we are so desperate for anything. And those people who I don't know, thrive on that desperation, when we're so open and ready and willing and we're like, anyone, anything, bring it on, bring it on, bring it on. I think we bring in people who prey on people like that, who want the power of those positions. Definitely a third chakra type of moment. Those people who are maybe, it's not deficient, no, excessive in their third chakra, taking advantage of people, finding power over people is very important. Those people, I think, definitely the ones who never kind of cross over into that next level, that's the stuckness. And I wrote this weekend. This is why the yellow book came first. And it doesn't make any sense when you think about how we climb through the chakras. But if you think of the sacral chakra as the middle point, where either energy goes back down or comes up, or we're empowered and it can flow easily, then this is the one that cycles. This is where we cycle. We either find our power and keep moving, and the energy continues up the spine, or we lose our power and we cycle all the way back down to our roots. And for people who are sort of excessive in that, there isn't really the expansion, a healthy expansion and expression. And so there is no climbing. They're either going to keep preying on people who are unrooted because they too are probably unrooted. My guess would be they also cycle, and their cycle likely an excessive sacral chakra. And this is just out of my brain into this microphone. An excessive third chakra probably means a lack of roots that are meaningful. And so what that looks like, just from watching people move, just from my own experience with myself, would be kind of jumping from group to group, really having no landing point, no protection, no safety, no home, no truth, just kind of bouncing to wherever you can get power. And so you're essentially looking for the weakest group that you can control. And the reason that you have to uproot so often is because eventually your ego trips overpower the group and they don't like it. And it's not fun and it's not enjoyable and you don't do anything. You're just talking all the time and you're always putting yourself on a pedestal and you're so awesome. And yeah. And then when people get tired of that, they sort of overthrow you, or the group completely dismantles, and all of a sudden you're just standing there with all of your egotistical pride. Yeah, feels good, doesn't it? Yum. Yes, we love that, don't we? And then when you have no group, you have no roots once again, and so you have to wait it out a little while until a new group appears that you can take over and egotistically steal power from everyone. And when groups are in a strong, sort of balanced power, those dictators are oftentimes just kind of thrown by the wayside. And hopefully the group would have enough autonomy that they would say, nope, that's not protective. That is not what this group is about. I am rooted enough in myself to know this is not what we're talking about. This is not what we're trying to do here. And this is not good behavior for the good of the group. This is only self-serving for the good of you and no one else. And it stems from having a healthy home, unquestionably. And if we don't have that, then we're constantly seeking somewhere else to be our home, somewhere outside of this. And then it puts so much pressure on the extra things that we're doing in this life. Because if home life is not enough, if sitting and hanging out and being with your family is not enough, and that is everything, period. That's it. That's everything. If that is not enough for you, that healed home, if that's not enough for you, then you are going to be looking to fill those gaps with these other things, which will probably lead to an excess. Which means you are looking for some sort of home in these things that are not the truth of our roots, in something that is removable. Yes, all jobs, all groups, all the things can all come to an end. And when we're trying to root to the removable, it puts us in a pretty bad place. And I think, honestly, it probably is always putting us in a place of excess. Because we have to overdo that kind of third chakra. We have to overdo it. If we're overdoing it, too much power flowing upward will blow out the pathway up. It's too much. Can't handle it. There's not a consistent flow of energy. And I don't know, to have a home, to have a place of protection means that we have the sort of breeding ground for everything else to happen in beautiful balance. And that safety and security, the protection that we talked about early on, really comes from being rooted in this secure understanding of home, family, self, and first and foremost, with self. If we don't love and protect our own bodies, right? Keep it out of abusive situations, keep it out of mentally abusive situations, keep it out of physically abusive situations. And I don't mean with other people, I mean with yourself. Okay? What are you saying to yourself when you're looking in the mirror? What are you feeding yourself? What are you giving yourself for resources and education? How are you paying attention to your spiritual, physical, mental well-being? How are you doing all of those things? Are you doing any of those things consistently enough for it to actually help? And that's just you. And before we can go anywhere, before we can have a protected rooted home space. And I think a lot of us do a really great job creating that space for spouses, for children, for our family. That's great because we're all wonderful providers and caregivers, and that's so amazing, and we're so awesome for doing that. But if we aren't also creating that protective, safe space within ourselves, within how our brain talks to ourselves, within how we interact with ourselves, then we can kind of, I don't know that it's fake, but we can provide a sort of almost superficial way of doing that. And maybe that is the consumerism side to all of this. It's like, unless you are creating that safe, protected space for yourself, then you can't create a real, safe, protected space for anyone else. It is false. It has a false bottom. Because you can't provide it for yourself. There is a block. And if there's a block in your own rooting system, rooting to oneself, then all other outlets are blocked. You can fake provide it. You can buy all the cool plastic organizers that you want, and you can, get all the good snacks at Sam's Club that you want. Yeah, go for it. Great. So great. Good for you. And you can have them all organized. You can have the perfect pantry, and you can make the best lunches. And you can have this super secure home where no one talks or yells, or you never discipline your kids, and you never kind of hold anybody accountable. You can create this super fake, superficial, safe space for people. But there's a balance in the darkness and light. And when we're covering up the fact that we have no safe space of our own for ourselves, we don't have a safe space even within our own minds with how we talk to ourselves, amongst ourselves, then we kind of lost the plot. And we can't really be of true service or value to anyone. Because it starts here. And once we do that for ourselves, and I remember being like, okay, I'm not criticizing my body. I'm certainly not doing that in front of my girls. I am certainly not going to stand in front of mirrors and weigh myself. I'm just not going to do it. I'm not, because it's not safe. It doesn't feel protective of who I am and how I need to celebrate and appreciate my body, which has gotten me through quite a bit. And so I'm done with that. It's over. And that was the start of being able to provide that space for my two girls, being able to provide that space within our home for my husband, for myself, for my two girls. And then I could start providing that space for people outside of my home. But everything outside of my home is just extra, bonus. And I think of it like bonus points or bonus levels in a video game. Don't know why we go there. Maybe your thing's Candy Crush, or I don't know. But we don't get to add anything until we've sort of built our own avatar. Right? And once we have our cool avatar with the cool hair, with the great bod, with the fun accessories, they're ready to go out there, then they can leave. But we've created protection within who they are and how we've developed them, and then they can go out. And if they're not taking care of kind of the people around them, who would be their family in this video game, then they're probably not going to make it very far. If they don't build some sort of safety lodge or something, they're probably not going to make it very far. Because that family unit has to have somewhere. to survive, to be protected, to have their own, right? If they've created this space where they are safe and protected, where those outside words can't really penetrate this space unless we let them. And I think this is the epitome of the danger of cell phones now. It's like words can get into our protected spaces so much easier than they used to. We used to be able to just retreat and come back the next day refreshed and reminded of who we are and who our home is, and that we are protected and we are good and glorious, and we can read and pour even more of that into our bodies and minds, and we can correct our mindset if it went awry yesterday. And when we start adding in people and environments and things outside of our protected home, we would have had to, and I don't think have to, because people go out without that protection all the time, but it would have been lovely to have been able to sort of root into ourselves and always know that we can come back here and remember. Be reminded of the power and the protection that is a part of your existence, is a part of how you were raised and the voice that was infused into your life. And now that that home space is sort of openly penetratable, it is definitely harder to keep that out. And I think part of that is probably the reason for a lot of teen deaths. Because think about it. You're unformed. If you don't have a great sense of the protection in your home, you're already questioning a whole lot of things, just with the amount of hormones and just everything that's rushing through your body. Then you don't get to turn it off. It doesn't turn off. You come home, which is supposed to be your safe place, your protection. Maybe you get to come home. You probably don't even get to do that. You get to go to the next sports team, the next band practice, the next extracurricular that you have. You go to that. You never get to sort of replant at home. Remember the words that were planted in you. Be reminded of the safe and protective home that you have. And if you didn't have that, then you aren't being reminded of that anyway. So you're going to root somewhere else, probably to people who are very unsure of themselves, right? As teenagers, quick to reject and reroute, not having a good sense of who they are yet, normal adolescent behavior. And then all of a sudden, you're just in this loop of unknown. No one there to guide you, no one paying all that much attention, no one having any idea how much time you are spending on these devices, how little you are checking in and existing in the real world. And all of a sudden that loop just begins to spin downward, and there's no one that can save us from that. And I think at the end of the day, right, we are supposed to be rooted in our homes. And I think we have such a aggressive uprooting system, like pulling kids from parents so early on, that it really is no wonder that kids are being uprooted and that they are very jarred with who they are earlier in life than they used to be. And I think it all comes down to not having a space that can't be penetrated by the outside world, not having a protective space to exist in anymore. And we do no cell phones on the top level, but we also do really, like, our kids have flip phones, which I can tell you is a great way to get your kid to call on the phone, because T9, as you might remember, if you're from my generation, T9 sucks the life out of you. Texting with T9 is a punishment in and of itself. And we'd like our kids having phones because there is a lot of communication that comes through there for their different club teams and extracurriculars. It is nice for them to have. Plus, we can get a hold of them, which is so wonderful. Now, I cannot understand people who have problems with their kid having their cell phone all of the time, because my kids won't take their cell phones anywhere. I don't know if it's because they're dorky, but I appreciate not having to have the opposite problem. But no cell phones upstairs, which means when we're going to bed, we are reading and going to bed. Which means when we're going to bed, we have this safe place where we can check out. I will say my husband and I both are like set phones down in the entryway and get them back up when we wake up in the morning. Maybe we'll check it once before we go to bed. Maybe we need to do something quick and we'll use it for that. But I would say maybe a 1 to 2 time pick up and flip of the phone at night, tops. So much so that we need to just, dang it, we didn't need to just get a freaking home phone. Fine, I will do that. I need to figure that out today. So much that we need a home phone because we are very hard to reach, right? And we are creating this sort of impenetrable force field for us to recharge our protection and safety of our home, which roots ourselves and our children to this safe, protected space before we venture back out into the world again. As always, you're smart, you're strong, you're beautiful. What are you going to do? Change the world.